President Trump enjoying a sumo wrestling match overseas in Japan, presenting a giant trophy to the winner. A break from the wrestling matches here in Washington. So let's bring in this Sunday's Roundtable ABC News political analyst Matthew Dowd, Republican strategist and ABC News contributor Alex Castellanos, Julie Pace, Washington bureau chief for the Associated Press, and we welcome ABC News deputy political director Mary Alice Parks. Great to have you all here this Sunday morning. And Matt, I want to start with you. We've been talking about these extraordinary moments between Speaker Pelosi and Donald Trump. How did the president fare in this? How do you think Pelosi fared?
Well, I don't think anybody has diminished view of the president, no matter what he does. It seems to be in the course of this. He says he's stuck at, as you showed in the numbers, he's stuck at about 40 or 41% of the approval rating. I actually think what he did help Nancy Pelosi, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, is
Go ahead and talk about that.
in the conflict that exists within her caucus, I think Donald Trump using her and attacking her actually helps unite her within that caucus even more. And I actually think because of how independent voters in the country view the president, which is unfavorably, it helps the view of Nancy Pelosi. So I think in a battle like this, it actually adheres to the benefit of Nancy Pelosi as opposed to Donald Trump. It definitely doesn't change the perceptions of Donald Trump.
Alex doesn't seem to agree with you. Shocking.
I might have a different view, and that is that when Donald Trump drags anyone into his playing field, the mud, he wins. He's very good at that. He is what he is. If he can get everybody else playing on his level, he's successful.
She's a pretty tough foil for the president, though.
I'll tell you what, she's proven herself a tough adversary. But she's the adversary Republicans want. She's more unpopular than Trump is in a lot of these places.
And Julie, what do you think the speaker's strategy is here?
I think the speaker is operating on two tracks right now. On the one hand, she is trying to hold off voices in her caucus who want to move toward impeachment quickly. On the other hand, she is trying to give them some tough red meat rhetoric so that she can show them that even though she's not ready to go toward impeachment, even though she strongly believes that that actually is a political mistake for Democrats, that she takes what is happening with Trump and the administration seriously, that she agrees with them that this strategy to just say no to every congressional inquiry, every request for documents or interviews is a real challenge to our system of government. But she really strongly believes that unless you have some massive change in public opinion on Trump and on impeachment, that is going to be pretty disastrous for Democrats.
And Mary Alice, behind all this is the White House's continuing stonewalling on many of these investigations. So that's agitated a lot of Democrats. So how long can Pelosi stave off this idea of impeachment, do you think?
Well, I think the question of impeachment is largely going to be determined by how this administration responds to the courts. You know, back to back in the last week, two different judges sided with Democrats in their requests for documents. And my Democratic sources on Capitol Hill say that they really did feel like those big wins helped temper some of this restlessness in the caucus. But there's also a lot of buzz on Capitol Hill that when it comes to the courts, there could be a new red line for Democrats. If this administration were to defy a court order and not give up documents, that I think could be a total breaking point, even for Speaker Pelosi and some of these Democrats that have been cautious.
Julie, are they going to get anything done on the Hill?
Not a lot.
Before the end of 2020.
I don't think they're going to get anything done that's proactive. There are some things that they will have to get done. Raising the debt limit, funding the government are things, basic functions. It says a lot, though, I think, about where we are, that those are probably the only things. Infrastructure, we saw again last week that this is basically a pipe dream, even though it's something that both parties profess to want to do. But there's little appetite from Democrats to try to give Trump any victories on policy heading into the election. And Trump, frankly, doesn't think it's good for his base to be seen working with someone like Nancy Pelosi.
Thank God they're not going to get anything done. But, you know, that strengthens Trump. The Washington elite who two fat guys fighting over a ham sandwich, these battles that mean nothing to people. The more people see dysfunctional Washington, the more they want someone to disrupt it, and that's Trump.
And remember,
but the problem that Donald Trump has in that scenario is he's Washington. He's the president. No, yeah, he is. He has become the leader of the biggest alligator in the swamp.
But that's one of the questions. I think that's one of the fundamental questions of the
His voters
2020
wouldn't see
election
that way.
is Trump going to be seen as a politician because he's been here for 4 years, or has he convinced his supporters and others who really look at Washington elites and think that it's a disaster?
Alice, you've been out there, actually. Do you think,
I mean, remember,
particularly
Nancy,
his base?
Nancy Pelosi has 40 members of her caucus that just flip seats red to blue. And if you're one of those 40, you are not excited about this idea of just throwing up your hands and not getting anything done. It is not fun to go home empty-handed. So she's getting it from both sides.
The problem, I mean, if you look at the reality of the situation in Washington today, is the Democrats have actually passed over 200 bills in the House of Representatives since the new Congress has come in. They can both legislate and investigate. They have done both at the same time. All of those bills are languishing in the Senate because Mitch McConnell has decided passing anything the Democrats do isn't a good idea. I want to go back to impeachment just for 1 second, though. This is an argument I think is both you can argue the politics of it, but then there's the principle of it. And at some point, Democrats, even if the politics of this is problematic for Democrats, and you can't change Republicans' minds on this, which is right now you can't, there is a principle argument to be made. Civil rights, the American public did not support. The leaders in the American public were off base on civil rights. On gay rights, the leaders were off base where the American public was. I think at some point in time, you have to put the politics aside and what is the principled argument that you want to do regarding the president's impeachment.
And Alex, I want to turn to Bill Barr, to the Attorney General. President Trump has now put the focus on investigating the investigators. Is he just playing to his base here?
You know, on occasion, even politicians do the right thing, and I think Donald Trump is doing the right thing here. Democrats have been calling for transparency for 2 years now, right? The American people have a right to see everything. Old Cuban saying, never spit straight up. Even Adam Schiff called for these documents to be released by the Obama administration because he was afraid Donald Trump would hide them,
the
right?
Unredacted
so guess what?
Mueller report.
And by the way, there is a case to be made that there was overreach in our investigative agencies, that out of good motives, they feared this authoritarian was going to become president. Oh, my God, it has to be stopped. Did they go too far? There are legitimate questions that should be investigated about that. Barr is protecting the presidency as well as the president.
And Bill Barr, Julie, really does seem to have quickly emerged as one of the president's strongest allies. Do you think Barr is doing the president's bidding or someone who's just protecting the presidency?
He says he's protecting the presidency. In this case, he is protecting this president. He is giving Trump what he wanted, which is somebody at the Justice Department who appears to be on his side. What's really interesting about what Bill Barr is doing is, yes, you have everything that he's doing with relation to the Mueller report, to investigating the investigators, but he's taken this Trump agenda on fully. He was just in El Salvador talking about MS-13 and immigration and gang members. He's embracing the Trump agenda in a really robust way.
Well, it's unlikely then that Democrats are going to trust whatever answer he comes up with. So I imagine a scenario where you have House Democrats issuing more subpoenas and they're starting to investigate the investigation of the investigation. And at the end of the day, bottom line, they want more oversight of this Justice Department, and the Justice Department doesn't want to give that.
And Alex, I want to turn to 2020, which is the shadow over everything we do. The president seems most concerned about Joe Biden tweeting about him, and we'll talk about that in a minute, from North Korea. But should someone like Pete Buttigieg, who we just saw, be a threat? He's on Fox News. He's a military veteran. Is that the kind of person they should be looking at?
I think the president's been very clear that the last guy he wants to see on his turf on Fox News is Pete Buttigieg, and there's a real reason for that. Joe Biden has middle-class, working-class potential. He's not playing just to the 40% of the Democratic Party that says it's liberal or ultra-liberal. There's another 52% of the Democratic Party that says it's moderate to conservative. That's Biden's lane. He's about the only guy in there, except for crossover Pete Buttigieg, the South Bend mayor who talks about working people and their pain and how the elites have let them down. So, yes, right now, Iowa, the latest survey there, the starting line survey, has Biden and Bernie at 24, Buttigieg in third place at 14. I could easily see old Biden shrinking and the guy who fills that lane. when Democrats start looking for an alternative to crazy Bernie, it may well be Buttigieg. I think he's the one to watch.
I think Pete Buttigieg, I mean, you watch him, he's probably one of the most impressive communicators of the entire field. And this is of experienced politicians that have run for and won a lot of offices in this. I think what the mayor, and I think he's impressive, and I think he is a very difficult opponent for the president to run against. But the problem I think that Pete Buttigieg has, problem or opportunity, is that he's going to have to demonstrate that he's never gone through, in a political way, a gauntlet of 3, 4, 5, 6 bad days in a row. And this campaign will set up that way. We'll have to watch him in his debates. But I am very interested to see if this young man can go through that gauntlet and how he emerges from that gauntlet, because that's the test of these politicians.
And Mary Alice, you've been out there covering Pete Buttigieg. What do you see as his challenges?
He might have been the perfect candidate for 2016. An outsider in what ended up being an outsider's race. The Democratic Party, right after Hillary Clinton lost, was just craving a new generation of leadership. But his biggest challenge might be that that was yesterday's fight. With this administration and this president in the White House for 2.5 years, we could have a Democratic electorate that actually is craving an elder statesman. And Joe Biden feels safe and secure to a lot of them.
And Julie, Nate Silver with our partners at 538 wrote a piece about the fundamental question facing Democratic primary voters. Are moderate Democrats more electable? Here's the answer. He says he doesn't know, but they seem to be polling better with general election voters. What's your take?
I agree with Nate that we don't know.
We don't know. That's such an easy thing to agree.
The two theories of the case right now for Democrats are you nominate a moderate, you nominate somebody like a Joe Biden, and you win back some of those working class voters who switched from Obama to Trump in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan. The other theory of the case is that Hillary Clinton lost Trump because she wasn't able to motivate and energize core parts of the Democratic electorate, younger voters, African-American voters, some of the liberals who voted for Bernie Sanders. So we don't know the answer to that, but those are two, I think, reasonable theories right now.
Martha, Democrats also have something we haven't paid a lot of attention to, a 15% floor. If you don't get above 15% in a lot of these primaries and caucuses, you get 0 delegates. What that means is Biden doesn't really have as many people in the field to divide to those lesser candidates. He's got a tougher race. He's not protected by that big field we think he has. So I think he's only running against 4 or 5 people. I think he's in trouble.
I think the biggest, I mean, when you look at the 2020 race, and the Democrats are going to go through this whole process, series of debates, a lot of candidates, and I don't think we should ignore the fact that Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren are in the top 5 of these candidates. So they have a place to emerge in this.
Yes, they do.
I think Donald Trump, in the end, right, and presidential election re-elects are all about where the president stands. I mean, it'll be a fascinating thing, who emerges and all that. Unless the president figures out a way to expand his support beyond 41%, it's very, very difficult for him to win a general election when his job approval is at 41 or 42%.
Let's talk a little bit about what the president is doing overseas besides looking at sumo wrestling. We all saw that tweet about North Korea and basically supporting Kim Jong-un and John Bolton. You know, he's worried about these missiles. I will say right away that those short little weapons that the president described can travel about 300 miles, as we've said. What's behind a tweet like that, Julie?
I think one thing is the president was probably trying to send a message to John Bolton. I mean, he is not afraid to contradict his own advisors publicly.
Does it mean John Bolton's in trouble, or he just likes that confusion?
Yeah, he generally likes either the confusion or to assert that he's in charge, and ultimately he is.
But maybe also get the message out there that John Bolton is my national security advisor and telling me.
And doesn't always speak for me. It is very clear that Trump, when it comes to the situation with North Korea, believes that his ability as a one-on-one negotiator is the right path. He believes he has made progress. He believes that the only way that we will avert this situation is for him to keep talking. He hears a lot of voices behind the scenes who tell him he is naive in that regard. But he, at this moment, believes that he is going to be able to strike some type of deal if he pushes personal diplomacy.
Let me just say again, I believe it was June 12th, the Singapore summit. So we are approaching the 1-year anniversary, and there has been zero significant progress in denuclearization. This is the administration that said the era of strategic patience is over.
But it's not about North Korea, is it? This has been a signal couple of weeks in American history because this is when the Cold War with China began. My generation grew up with nightmares about nuclear mushroom clouds because we had to stand up to the Soviet Union since the 40s. Well, we won that. And by the way, Republicans did pretty well at the polls because we were the party of strength during that period. Now there's a new Cold War, military, economic. It's against a more powerful and ruthless adversary. Trump is the first president to take that seriously. China's been using North Korea as leverage, as a club to beat us with. All Trump is trying to do is take North Korea, that bat, out of their hands. But Trump, I think, has done something important.
But it hasn't happened yet.
Well, as long as he says he can convince China, hey, I've got a good relationship with the little guy, that helps.
Well, if just switch places for a second, President Obama had been saying and doing the same things related to North Korea, Fox News and the Republican establishment would be up in arms about how he'd placated a dictator in North Korea. It's Memorial Weekend, right? It's Memorial Weekend. Tomorrow's Memorial Day. And I'm struck by the president in this. There's a great country song by Justin Morse called The Ones That Didn't Make It Home. And if you really want to honor the ones that didn't make it home, and this president, and watching this president this past week, do you really honor the ones that didn't make it home by considering pardoning people that are convicted, might be convicted of war crimes? Do you really honor the ones that didn't make it home by the troop assignment in Iran after we watched the folly in Iraq, the folly in Afghanistan, and we didn't learn the lesson of the Vietnam War? It took us 30 years to finally learn the lesson of the Vietnam War. We haven't learned it in 30 days. And do we really honor the ones that didn't make it home by banning transgender troops, from banning transgender people from being in the military? And so, to me, when I look at this, and this race in 2020, go back to it, is not going to be about whether our economic situation with China and what's the GDP numbers and employment is. It's going to be about who we are. And on this Memorial Weekend, I think it's an important question to ask that, is who we are and how do we honor those people that didn't make it home?
Hard to respond to that one, Alex, but I'm going to give you about 10 seconds.
I think it's going to be about something else larger, and that is maybe it's about who we are, but who we are as compared to an elite that's losing all over the world, losing in Australia, losing in Brexit, losing in Israel. The Democrats are the party of that elite here that's making government work for them and not us. Donald Trump is still the outsider, and I think he's got a big advantage going in.
A guy worth $3 billion that puts his name on everything.
He's still the blue collar. He's the only thing standing between us and them. That's what a lot of Americans, I think, are going to vote for.
Okay, thanks to all of you, and have a good Memorial Day weekend. Thanks for coming in.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.